Let's get to the big three.
Number 3.
I think what we see in front of us, the challenges are finish Hamas in Gaza, keep their foot on Hezbollah. They've conducted over 1,000 attacks. They will not let them build capabilities in southern Lebanon again. That's never going to happen.
That is General Jack Keane, fresh off a trip to Israel, talking about what's going on. The Prime Minister takes center stage, why it's important than ever that we help the IDF finish off Hamas despite the Allied defection.
Number 2.
Radical left rhetoric. The radical left is causing the problem. They're out of control. They're saying things, and they're really dumb people.
Got to stop this. The political attacks on ICE and certain Democrats are ones helping inflame the rhetoric as more deadly encounters take place, not with illegal criminals, that's tough enough, but with organized protesters, and in Dallas, a flat-out killer.
Number 1.
I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night, because it didn't dawn on me originally, that there might be corroboration for our conversation. There might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter.
So you mean you leaked James Comey, former FBI director? He has been indicted, first time in American history, by a grand jury on 2 charges. Why I think, even if he doesn't get convicted, it's a win for justice. He's going to be forced to qualify and define his behavior. And while he goes front and center, he's got a problem. For years, he's contradicted himself. He's gone out on book tours, been asked to testify. And it's amazing how little he remembers and how little he knows for a guy that prided himself on his detail. And you don't become FBI director if you forget everything. Griff Jenkins joins us now, Fox & Friends Weekend co-host, reporter, all around on all the major issues of the day. Griff, your response to the massive walkout as the prime minister took center stage.
You know, Brian, if we've been watching the walkout of these delegations, it reminds me of when, more than 15 years ago, when Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad came to the UN and delivered a blistering attack on not just the U.S., but the West, and delegations walked out because here you have Iran's president just blasting the West in a preposterous speech. In this case, all these delegations have walked out of Netanyahu, who is speaking specifically to the hostages in Gaza so they can hear his voice that we've not given up on you, that Hamas is a brutal, savage organization that has killed millions over the years and, of course, taken these hostages and torturing them. And so it's such a contrast of actual messages. You would think that more delegations would stay in there because this speech that Netanyahu is delivering is among the most important, I think, of our current time.
Yeah, but they want to make a symbol. They're not going to listen. They don't want to listen. October 7th didn't mean anything to them. It means everything to Israel. They cannot allow this to happen. As Netanyahu is pointing out now, the Houthi rebels did hit a hotel yesterday. So they were able to, with long-range missiles, it's not perfect, their defensive missile system, whether it's David Sling or whether it's the Arrow system or the Iron Dome, it can't catch everything, as we know. I want you to hear what Ambassador Huckabee said to Piers Morgan about the allies of ours, France, England, Australia, Portugal, and others, now recognizing a Palestinian state. Good luck with that. Cut 29.
We're disappointed as a United States in our allies, people that we are great friends with, because, first of all, it's a violation of the Oslo Accords. That's problematic. But more importantly, it has had the opposite effect of what I think they wanted to see happen. The first thing that happened, as Secretary Rubio has repeatedly pointed out, it just ended negotiations with Hamas. That froze absolutely stone cold. The second thing, we've been desperately trying to work some resolve to the impasse between a financial crisis between the Palestinian Authority and Israel. There are some issues that are very harmful to the Palestinian Authority. Quite frankly, it's not good for anyone. Remittance money should go back to the PA, but there's some unresolved issues. We were making progress, and I've been going back and forth between Ramallah and Jerusalem trying to work on it. When this happened, that ended the discussion. And we're back to zero on that. And the third thing that happened is that it has emboldened Israel to start talking about declaring sovereignty over parts of Judea and Samaria. So all of those things, I don't think were the intended consequences of the decision by countries like France and the UK to unilaterally declare a Palestinian state, but that's the result of it.
Griff, your thoughts?
Well, look, this is really, I'm glad to see that the Trump administration is not going to go in on this. And there really isn't, as Ambassador Huckabee's pointing out, much justification in this current time to recognize that. And it's such a political transparent sort of signal. It's almost like virtue signaling, but it's worse for the very reasons that Huckabee laid out there in terms of whether or not you are able to expand on the Abraham Accords and try and change things in the Middle East. That's what President Trump really gets the most credit for, was going in the first Trump administration, the Abraham Accords. But when he came back, he spent the 4 years off thinking, how can I really make a difference? How can I really change this? And yet some of our closest allies from the UK, France, and others are now recognizing doing this, like,
But isn't the U.S. supposed to be a place to have communication? So if you don't like somebody, I'm going to walk out. What are you, a child? I think we listened to Iran. I'm pretty sure we don't agree with Iran. If the Russian president was going to speak or a delegate, we stay. I'm sure Mike Waltz still sits in there. So have some courage. They pick up and they walk out. So they're going to show you that they aren't even listening. That's what makes it very hard to deal with anybody in the Middle East. It's a
great point you make, by the way. Don't forget, President Trump just spoke there, and he just unleashed at Turtle Bay on pointing out that body, the United Nations, has begun to lose such credibility that why do we have them? They are a place of diplomacy, and you're not seeing that today.
Yeah, we'll bring back some of the speech throughout the hour, but I want to switch over to another area of your expertise, and that's what's happening with immigration and ICE. There's law enforcement. They're called Border Patrol. They're called ATF. They're called your local cops. You're told your state police. Kind of accept them, right? Border, you also have National Guard in times of emergency. Understood. But there's something about ICE where people aren't putting these things together. They are national federal law enforcement agents. They have a specific job what to do. They live amongst us. They're one of us. They are American. But somehow it's okay to vilify them. Listen to how they've been described. Cut 37.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the street,
running around our communities like masked bank robbers, terrorizing women.
When I talked about what terrorism looks like, this is it.
When I see ICE, I see slave patrols.
This is not Germany. That's the SS and the Gestapo. This is the United States of America. Unmask yourselves.
Masked men jumping out of unmarked cars, people disappearing, no due process.
The SS, the Gestapo,
you were just with them, right? You were just with them, Operation Midway.
I was just with Marcos Charles, who was the individual at the press conference at the Dallas shooting, that horrific shooting. And, I was riding in his car, and we were making arrest of illegal criminal aliens.
Why are they wearing masks?
Well, they're wearing masks because they're being doxxed, because they're real-time apps that are putting exact time and location images and information out there so that someone who may be not mentally all there, that hears the constant message from Democrats that the ICE agents are equivalent of Nazis, feel emboldened to take action, and you have things like what happened in Dallas.
Like unmarked cars. Of course, unmarked cars. You ever hear of an unmarked car with a police officer? If you're going to do a raid on a house, would you want a siren? No, of course not. You got to have the element of surprise. These guys are dangerous. 70% are convicted, are criminals, let alone the amount that we don't subscribe to. What's the international criminal system that we go to? Interpol. So Venezuela and Cuba are reporting their criminals? Absolutely not. So these people are dangerous, and we have to do the best we can to make sure our men and women survive. So they're going to be in unmarked cars. Now they're corrupt. Now they're part of a mob.
Well, and to be clear, every operation I have seen or even witnessed in person, every agent has ICE or HSI or Border Patrol on their body, identifying themselves in the community. And you're right, the people. So I was out in Operation Midway Blitz, the first guy we took down, they had been studying where he lived. They knew when he was likely to leave the house, and he had been convicted in the U.S. last year of forcibly sexual assault on a child under 13. And so when you consider the fact that ultimately these ICE agents, who are men and women who are also husbands and wives and brothers and sisters, they're real people just simply carrying out federal immigration law enforcement, but yet the Democrats, who, if they don't like it, should change their laws, work to change laws in Washington, they're choosing to dehumanize these federal immigration law enforcement officers to a level now that, I got to tell you, Brian, I've never been so concerned for ICE and federal immigration law enforcement, because the stuff that they're telling me,
but they can't be surprised.
Frightening.
But you can't be surprised, because I just played you what they've been hearing from people that they like Tim Walz and Brandon Johnson, a remarkably ineffective mayor. The Congressman John Larson was the crazy guy going, "This is not Germany." So the references to Hitler. So anybody who follows them says, okay, yeah, these my lawmaker, my state representative thinks they're crazy. I have to take it upon myself to go kill them. Chris Rufo points out, this is not right or left. This is all left. Cut 38.
We're seeing the emergence of a new form of left-wing terror. Back in the last wave of left-wing terror in the 1970s, it was people organized into cells and groups like the Weather Underground, the Black Panther Party. What we're seeing now is a two-part terror system where the left's messaging apparatus, whether it's through the mainstream media or through niche internet forums pushing hard left-wing ideologies, trans ideology, Antifa ideology, the message machine is radicalizing what we could think of as radical normie terrorists, people who are lone wolves in everyday communities that have been radicalized online, and they go out without any institutional support and they're killing conservatives.
Yeah, can we play the soundbite, by the way, Brian, of the Democrat leader that stood up recently and said, I condemn political violence of any kind, and I will be the first to admit that my party went too far with anti-ICE rhetoric. I believe it's putting things in danger. Let's, as a party, come together to say we disagree with Trump's immigration policies, but we will not put men and women in law enforcement in danger. Play that cut?
Yeah, they don't have it.
Oh, it didn't exist.
Yeah, and it's not been said, and it's not been said at all. In fact, I haven't seen any let up. I'm very curious after Dallas when they say this. I'm out to kill ICE, and it's the ICE app that tracks ICE agents and their operations that allowed him to line that ICE agency up. Now, look, that's a facility, and I guess everybody in the Dallas area knows that's where ICE is. But they were able to track agents out in the field. And this sniper, in his final remarks online, let it be known, this is what we're doing. How long are we going to be allowing this? Can you just take it down? Final thought on this?
Final thought. That final message is important that you point out, Brian, because he said he hopes that what he was about to carry out would put fear in agents' hearts and minds that they could be targeted. And at the end of the day, I think the fact that you have the acting ICE director, Todd Lyons, and others like Jonathan Fahey on Fox and Friends with us this morning saying, unfortunately, if Democrats don't work to change this environment, that rhetoric, it's going to get worse. And that's really terrifying.
Griff, who's going to be on this weekend?
We got Todd Lyons on. That's going to be great. We got Dave Portnoy. That's going to be good stuff. We got Laura Trump and a whole lot of fun stuff. Who knows?
Got 8 hours to fill. Griff Jenkins, brand new. Congratulations again. Brand new host of Fox and Friends Weekend, just filling in for Lawrence today.
It's a pretty easy case because, look, he lied. You saw my truth today. He lied. It was yes, no. He didn't say, well, in my opinion, he didn't do a lot of things that maybe he should have, but I don't think he could because he lied. That was a very important question that he was asked, and he wanted to be specific, but he didn't. The only thing that happened to him, he didn't think he'd get caught.
And that is the President of the United States with the chopper in the background en route to his golf tournament, which I know my next guest would love to attend, the Ryder Cup, with his Kai over his left shoulder, the president answering all questions. First off, what we told you, he has indicated that there might be a deal for the hostages. My fingers are crossed, and we all hope that indeed happens as long as Hamas no longer is in power. But number two, He's talking about James Comey's indictment. So in case you do not know, federal prosecutors in Virginia have charged Comey with obstruction of justice and making false statements, according to a person familiar with the development who was granted anonymity to discuss the sensitive matter. Evidently, they won him for 3 charges. They got 2. Comey has answered back. What about the chances of this case being successful, and should he be indicted at all? Trey Gowdy did a lot of the questioning with James Comey and was scratching his head through a lot of it. The former chairman of the House Oversight Committee in Government, but most importantly now host of Sunday Night in America with Trey Gowdy, Sundays at 9 o'clock. Trey, welcome back.
Hey, Brian, how are you?
Good. First off, I know you want to be talking golf, or you at least be watching. But number 2, just on the Comey indictment, I know Andy McCarthy, a guy we really like, doesn't think that he should have been indicted. Do you?
Yes, I do. I have great respect for Andy. If the charge were whether or not Jim Comey has lied, period, you would have no trouble whatsoever getting a jury of 12, regardless of jurisdiction, to convict him. But indictments don't work that way. They're very particular. I actually had a conversation last night with the senator who asked the questions on the count that was what we call no build. In other words, the grand jury did not vote to go forward on that one. You can guess who that is, the senior senator from South Carolina. I find that, the criminal justice system, I think, frustrates a lot of people, even those of us that were in it. Of all the things that Jim Comey did, all the things, and I just wrote out a long list of things, because you're right, I had to deal with him a lot until he got fired. The fact that he is being prosecuted for lying about whether or not he leaked or authorized a leak, I think Andy's point, I guess, and Andy doesn't need me to speak for him, I would not want my case to rise and fall on the credibility of Andy McCabe. So you do have a conflict. McCabe says something did not happen or did happen. Comey says it did not. I would not want to go into court with Andy McCabe as my star witness because he's just as disingenuous as Jim Comey. But as a member of the public, which is what I am now, there has to be accountability. And Comey did more damage to the FBI than any criminal defendant could ever think about doing throughout his or her career.
It's true. And what you're referring to, the fact is, Andy McCabe said, yeah, I did leak to the press. And they said, did James Comey know about it? He goes, yes. And they said, well, and Comey came back and said, I didn't leak to the press, and I don't really know what Andy McCarthy's, what Andy's talking about. So I want to bring this exchange front and center. It's James Comey and Susan Collins. Cut 1.
Did you show copies of your memos to anyone outside of the Department of Justice?
Yes.
And to whom did you show copies?
I asked, President tweeted on Friday after I got fired that I better hope there's not tapes. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night, because it didn't dawn on me originally, that there might be corroboration for our conversation. There might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square. And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel. And so I asked a close friend of mine to do it.
What the hell is he talking about? Like, why? What do you mean? I have to get these tapes out to somebody else? So you're leaking out classified documents to exonerate yourself because the president's going to have a tape? I listened to this 3 or 4 times. What is he saying?
Yeah, I know exactly what he's saying. He used a law professor friend of his to get, because we had a hard time getting those memos, but we got to read them all. So go back in time. Jim Comey is meeting with the man that kept him, even though he should not have, Donald Trump, as the FBI director, memorializing all of these conversations as soon as he gets back in his car. So he now it's so ironic to look back on it now, Brian. He did everything in his power to keep Donald Trump from becoming president.
Yep.
I don't think anybody will disagree with that. From Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, FISA, everything he could. Trump decides to keep him anyway. And his, reward, his gratitude to Trump is that he goes and memorializes every conversation that he had with him in a memo. And he wanted, look, the Bureau is notorious for leaking. I mean, that's true even in local cases. Gosh, it's true on national cases. And they usually go to the New York Times. I even know which reporter they usually go to. I mean, I won't name him. I guess it's not his fault that that's who they pick, but I know who they go to. And so what he was trying to do was color public opinion even back then. This is after Trump had won. So try to keep him from winning. Even after he won, this whole intelligence community assessment with Brennan, I mean, that's the thing that really makes my hair stand up even more than it normally does, is there was a real missed opportunity to go after Brennan. I mean, Brennan just bold-faced lied in the middle of a House Intel Committee
about
meeting about whether or not they relied on the dossier, but the time passed. So there's so many lies to choose from Comey, but you just played Susan Collins. You got Ted Cruz asking about the leak. You got Lindsey Graham asking about a memo he got from John Ratcliffe. You know, the Biden DOJ, that's when the window was after Biden took office, because you only get 5 years to bring this. So the lie that Brennan told me was in 2018. So that window's closed to hold him accountable for that. And I think that's what people are so frustrated about is, number one, why do we have a statute of limitations? Number two, is this really the best all the things Jim Comey did, this is the best you can come up with, is whether or not he or Andy McCabe is telling the truth.
Right. And the thing is, you didn't know what you know now. You didn't know that Brennan's on the record saying, the dossier, he was challenged. I'll just paraphrase. So, this is, we can't verify this. He goes, yes, but doesn't it sound true? Really? You're the CIA director. Doesn't it sound true? Are you listening to music? Or are you trying to get to the facts? Here's a little of the exchange with Bret Baier, because this guy kept going on book tours after he escaped prosecution, and he thought he was in the free and clear. Cut 8.
So the story of that briefing leaks out almost immediately after you do it. CNN and others run the story of this unverified dossier. Did you or your subordinates leak that?
No.
Did James Clapper?
No, not to my knowledge.
John Brennan?
I don't know who leaked it. I had no part in any leaking of it. It was about 4 or 5 days later that it leaked, but I remember because President-elect called me about it.
Did you ever try to find out?
Who leaked an unclassified public document? No.
Did you inform the President-elect at the time what you knew about how it was funded or who was behind it?
No, I did not.
Did you inform him that Christopher Steele had been fired by the FBI?
No.
Or that he had lied?
No, and I didn't know those things at that time anyway.
Come on. You don't know these things?
Not true. Not true. Most of what he said in that interview with Bret was not true. We were able to figure out who. So there's a guy named James Baker who was general counsel for the FBI and a Comey acolyte. I mean, in the fall of 2016, both before and after the election, the Bureau was actively leaking to left-leaning media outlets trying to either influence the election or do exactly what they did, which is cast a cloud over Donald Trump's presidency. And the shame of it all, Brian, is they did. They were successful with a really big assist from the media at casting a cloud. And you know Donald Trump pretty well. You know him better than I do, but I know him well enough to know this was not just about politics with him. These were some really awful personal allegations that you're going to get asked about by your wife and your children. So imagine having your child, I don't care who you are, Donald Trump or Donald Jones, having your children ask you, is this stuff true about a Moscow hotel? And anyone who knows Donald Trump, he doesn't want you talking while he's eating. He certainly is not going to do – he doesn't know what a golden shower is. We had to tell him. He doesn't have a clue what that is. The guy's a germ freak. You think he's going to let somebody do that to him? I mean, I don't want to gross your listeners out, but that's a pretty gross thing to do. But that's what Christopher Steele came up with. And now what we know, paid for by the Clinton campaign, laundered through a law firm, relying on unreliable sources. And if Jim Comey did not know that his bureau had fired Christopher Steele as an informant, then what was he doing? We all knew that he'd been fired because he didn't follow FBI protocol, and then that's when they did the end run and tried to get the information to Bruce Orr via his wife and Fusion GPS. And that's what makes people want to set their hair on fire, is Durham took forever to come up with nothing. So here we are left.
But did uncover some things, right? He did uncover some things. I thought that
he uncovered some things, but it didn't result in any consequences, and he lost most of his trials.
Yeah.
I mean, he lost more trials in like a month than I lost in my career.
So a couple of things, Trey, and you're going to kill me for saying this because I didn't go to law school. If you can expose this information and see him say, I don't know, I don't recall, I don't know, I don't recall, and a jury says, oh, not guilty, at least the world or the country will be forced to pay attention. And the half that just listens to Jimmy Kimmel and Rachel Maddow will go, who don't like Comey anyway, because of what they think he did to Hillary Clinton, will go, what the hell? At one point, they're going to go, a reasonable person go, what the hell was going on with this guy? There's no way any of this is true. And how dare you go to this length to undermine the presidency and deny it? The problem is no one ever met someone like Donald Trump, who was never going to quit. He was never going to stop. He was going to buck all tradition, comment on a case while it's happening, almost fire Robert Mueller in the middle of an investigation, and then ultimately get exonerated because he didn't do anything. So that's why I think they won by doing this, because it's going to force him to lawyer up. I want him uncomfortable. Number two, he's going to be forced to testify or not testify. People are going to have to talk about this case again. And I want them to understand, whatever you think of Trump and that upset election that you didn't think was possible, he legitimately won, and he was legitimately undermined for 2.5 years. And guess what? Our country was hurt. That's what bothers me the most.
Irreparably hurt. And the reputation of certain entities that we rely upon, the DOJ. I mean, I'm sitting here reading these articles this morning that Jim Comey's some kind of martyr. Democrats wanted to string him up at what 6-7 years ago?
Oh, yeah.
The only reason they changed their minds is because he went at. Little did we know, while he was inserting himself in the Hillary Clinton campaign, he was doing that times 100 with Donald Trump. And then he has the audacity to write a book that we should all ascribe to his higher form of loyalty or fidelity or honor. The media, they made a conscious decision in 2016 that the end justifies the means. And they really didn't care whether or not the Steele dossier was accurate or not. I was actually talking to Lindsay yesterday. I said, Lindsay, have you ever looked at the FBI efforts to corroborate the Steele dossier? And he said yes. But Devin sent me to do it. You know their number one piece of corroboration? It was a guy named Sidney Blumenthal and a newspaper article. The world's greatest law enforcement agency, in quotes, is using Sidney Blumenthal, a stooge for Hillary Clinton, and newspaper articles to verify the allegations of a guy named Christopher Steele, who they had already fired. I agree with you. Even if it's a not guilty verdict, look, it's hard to get a conviction, Brian. You got to get 12 people to agree beyond a reasonable doubt. Even if they say, you know what, we think he lied, you're not going to get a conviction. Even if they say we're pretty sure he lied, you're not going to get a conviction beyond a reasonable doubt. But to your point, you have if you have probable cause and you have a realistic possibility, then I think you can make the argument that you have an obligation to go forward.
Trey, who's going to be on your show this week?
I am going, well, it's been shuffled now thanks to the indictment. Yep. I'm going to have the worst lawyer I know, Lindsey Graham, come on. I'm going to have Dusty Johnson, whom I love, a congressman from South Dakota. We're going to cover the shutdown drama. We're going to cover crime. We're going to cover the shooting in ICE. Isn't it amazing, Brian, how fast news
It's amazing.
changes?
Oh, you're kidding. Oh, my goodness, I know.
3 days ago, we were talking about a targeted shooting in Dallas of an ICE agent, and now we're talking about Jim Comey. And you're you're a huge consumer of information, more so than I am. I'm watching us miss a bunch of putts in the Ryder Cup. But the notion that Jim Comey is somehow a martyr for justice. Do you remember when he was on his book tour? Now, he interviewed Brett, but he also admitted that he did something to Donald Trump and Mike Flynn that he never would have tried with Barack Obama. If you want to know what Jim Comey is like and the damage he did to our justice system, go watch that interview. Because the lady is blindfolded for a reason. And for him to admit that he treated Trump worse and differently than he would President Obama tells you all you need to know. And why, quite candidly, if he had to do it all over again, Donald Trump never would have retained Jim Comey.
Absolutely.
He wouldn't have replaced him with Andy McCabe, and he probably wouldn't have picked Jeff Sessions.
Yeah, real quick, and this is a final thought, Trey. If I found out that if Donald Trump loses to if the next president is a Democrat, if Donald Trump spends in 2028, spends 4 months trying to undermine that Democrat, I'd be just as angry. I'm telling you, it's not the American way. You don't do that.
I don't think he will do it because the CIA director and some others that I know in his administration would never allow it.
Exactly.
John Brennan and John Ratcliffe are as different as the East and West.
Trey, I can't wait for your show on Sunday at 9.
Yours either, brother.
I'll try not to drop the ball at 10. You got it. Trey Gowdy, thanks so much. First off, on the Comey situation, the indictment came down last night. Chairman Smith, what do you think? I mean, a lot of people say the president is going after his enemies. Is that how you view it?
Not at all. I look at it from lying to Congress. It's illegal. There's been other people that's been charged with lying to Congress. Roger Stone was the last one. And so this shows that no one's above the law. If you recall, back during the Biden administration, whenever we were doing the impeachment inquiry and met with Hunter Biden and the other Biden relatives, the lies that was said there, they ultimately got pardoned for. And so we've seen this time and time again. And whether you're the former FBI director or not, it shouldn't matter. You should be held accountable just like everyone else. Lying to Congress is a very big thing.
You're former chairman of Oversight. You said at one point, if I knew then what I know now, you would have went after Comey. What did you not know when you were in Congress that you later were to find out?
Well, the degree in which the director was misleading and lying to Congress, I think goes far beyond that. I think one of the things that still needs to come out of this is the FISA warrants. And I'm mystified as to why the courts have not come back. When you sign a FISA warrant, you're testifying before the court, and it says at the very top of it, as John Ratcliffe, then Congressman John Ratcliffe, now the CIA director, he said, if you look at the blank form, it says verified. So it's a one way. There's no advocate on the other side. You go to the court and say, I verify this is true. Well, it was false. And it was the predicate in which they did all these other police powers. That is something we didn't understand in real time.
So, yeah, what I also wonder about is he wanted, not only did he come and testify, but he did a book tour, at which time he was getting questions about this, and new revelations are coming out about it. I mean, listen to Ted Cruz question him on May 3rd, cut 6.
On May 3rd, 2017, in this committee, Chairman Grassley asked you point blank, quote, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? You responded under oath, quote, never. He then asked you, quote, have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton administration? You responded again under oath, no. Now, as you know, Mr. McCabe, who works for you, has publicly and repeatedly stated that he leaked information to the Wall Street Journal and that you were directly aware of it and that you directly authorized it. What Mr. McCabe is saying and what you testified to this committee cannot both be true. One or the other is false. Who's telling the truth?
I can only speak to my testimony. I stand by what the testimony you summarized that I gave in May of 2017.
So your testimony is you've never authorized anyone to leak. And Mr. McCabe, if he says contrary, is not telling the truth. Is that correct?
Again, I'm not going to characterize Andy's testimony, but mine is the same today.
Is that maddening to you, Jason?
It's so frustrating because it's crystal clear. If you lie to Congress, you're breaking the law.
And why were you lying? You're lying to undermine and make the illusion real to the American people, the voter, to ultimately get this guy impeached, President Trump, before he's done.
Just be honest. That's the whole purpose of why you're called into Congress is so for members of Congress can get to the bottom of things. And there's numerous examples that have been highlighted that Comey was asked various questions and people believe that they can be proved to be false.
So, and we'll see if
Well, and let me just add here. People would testify before Congress on a regular basis. Sometimes they have to, they come back a few days later and they correct their testimony and say, you know what, I misspoke. Or, hey, he never did that in this case. He was asked a very direct and great question by Senator Ted Cruz, and it was given every opportunity, and he never came back and corrected the record. That is his testimony, and the allegation is that that is a lie. And I think Ted Cruz did a very admirable job of laying that out.
And we can go back and forth and we'll see where this goes. He's got a lawyer up. This is why I say that it's out of the court. We don't know who the jury's going to be, but we know that he's a slippery guy. But I love the fact that he's got a lawyer up. He's going to have to get ready. His life is going to be put on hold because he, Brennan, Obama, Biden to a degree, Lisa
Clapper.
Monaco, Clapper, all these people hurt the country for 3 years. And they have this, it was amazing that Trump, even without the pandemic, was still going to win re-election despite this. And remember the eruptions and the distraction. Every time he did something positive, there'd be a revelation that would pop up on CNN, Congressman. I know you were just getting into Congress at the time, Jason.
That's exactly right. But you just look at the whole process. What President Trump went through, 70 plus indictments on felonies.
Yeah.
Like that is just absolutely crazy. And the American people saw right through it. He didn't lie before Congress. Trump never lied before Congress, and he got charged on 70 different unrelated matters. Comey lied to Congress.
Right. And I don't know if you met Trump, but he doesn't forget. And he, at one point, he's going to turn around. When he sat there in those courtrooms, and he sat there and goes, well, you'll have your day. And he's doing it. I don't want him to do it on the country's time, but just go ahead, get justice, and see where it goes. I want to talk about what's happened with the economy. Nobody's talking about this. Our GDP grew at 3.6%. Now, that is an astounding number. I know why it's not getting such heat, because we have such a blizzard of news. But what does that mean? You're the Ways and Means Chair. What does that mean for our economy?
It has a huge impact. It has a huge impact to the revenues and the deficit spending. When we passed the One Big Beautiful Bill, creating the permanency in the tax code, the Congressional Budget Office, the official scorekeepers of Congress, projected that GDP would be at 1.8%. What was revised just in the last few days was 3.8%. That's 2 percentage points higher. That's roughly $600 billion of additional revenue a year. Not many people's talking about what happened in the month of June. The month of June this year, we had a $26 billion surplus in government. That's the first time that we had more revenues coming in than what we were spending in any month since June of 2016.
That's the tariffs.
It was because of the income coming in from the tax receipts and the tariffs. Those were the two items that contributed to it.
But yet we're looking at a shutdown in a few days. I don't see anything to stop it. Chuck Schumer got vilified for saying I had no option last time for continuing. So he and Hakeem Jeffries are putting up a tough front. You've been through this, Jason Chaffetz, as a congressman and chairman. Is that where we're heading now?
Well, it's up to the Democrats. This is the same spending level that they voted in favor of under Biden.
Yeah.
So what's their case? That they need more money for public radio? I mean, you're going to shut down the government over issues like that? They have no case. If they have one, go to the American people, do it. And they wouldn't meet for
Well, they want to undo a lot of the big, beautiful bill, right? Yeah, they want to undo it. What?
But it's the same spending level that they voted for under President Biden. It's that simple.
What are the ripple effects of this? Who gets paid? Who doesn't get paid? Who does get paid?
So whenever a government shuts down, you're looking at a quarter of government that's not funded because that's the discretionary amount of spending. And then the administration can decide. There's a lot of flexibility. Mm-hmm. And the worst thing for me to think that the Democrats would want to trust someone who they hate, which is President Trump, to decide what the spending priorities are for that quarter. Russ Volt with OMB will be making those decisions along with the president. what they're asking for is completely unrealistic. The Democrats voted for this clean continuation of funding 6 months ago. Chuck Schumer voted for this 6 months ago, but he's refusing to today unless we add $1.4 trillion in more spending. We provide health insurance for illegals. We eliminate $50 billion for rural hospitals. And let's continue an expanded COVID subsidy. This is what they're asking for. This is not what 77 million Americans voted for.
Right. And do you think the president was right not to meet with the leadership, Democratic leadership, Jason?
Yeah, he's not going there. It's just, I think that's right. Hey, wait till a couple days before. This is all on Chuck Schumer. It's totally up to the House. Did its job. They passed this. It's up to the Senate. It's up to Chuck Schumer.
All right. When we come back, a few more minutes with these two gentlemen, Jason Smith and Jason Chaffetz. We're going to be talking about what Netanyahu just said and what the president just proclaimed. What's happening in Gaza, as well as the president's, I think, change of heart looking at the reality with Ukraine and Russia. Don't move.
It's looking like we have a deal on Gaza, and we'll let you know. I think it's a deal that will get the hostages back. It's going to be a deal that will end the war. It's going to be a deal it's going to be peace. I think we have a deal. That'll be number 8, Peter, not there.
And you said that to Peter Doocy. Jason Chaffetz is here, Congressman Jason Smith, chairman of Ways and Means. So, Chairman, not surprising, the president decides to tell the press that en route to Marine One, en route to the Ryder Cup. What do you think?
The president is the most transparent president we've ever had.
We're going to demand this from now on.
It is a great thing to have, that he just shoots out what he's thinking. He puts that on social media. He also does it to the world. And he's a deal maker. He has done 7 deals so far. He says this is number 8, and we welcome that.
Yeah, look, he wears it on his shirt sleeve, and I think he will get a deal.
Well, the deal has to be these are the parameters. All the hostages got to come out. Hamas has got to be out, right? And right away. And then aid comes streaming in. And third is it's all about Israel's security. If Israel listened to the world, Hezbollah wouldn't have been touched. Yeah. Syria would still be in place. The Houthis would never have been touched. And Iran would still be en route or have a nuclear weapon right now. They put up with the blizzard of criticism, then they do it. And right now, you walk through the Israeli protesters outside the UN, right? How big was that crowd?
Without a doubt. I walked down 6th Avenue, and seeing those protesters, I can tell you it's a well-funded, well-organized.
Why do you think that?
Without a doubt, it's based on research that we've done with tax-exempt entities that are funding these programs and these protests. We have, in fact, sent to Treasury a dozen different non-for-profits that have been funding terrorism, Hamas and terrorism. They should lose their tax-exempt status. Taxpayers should not be subsidizing those activities. You could tell with those nice signs, with how organized they are, it didn't just happen.
They're getting paid.
Yeah.
You don't show you're in your 20s, you show up and you're holding up some oak tag. But that's what Stephen Miller brought up yesterday and the president signed. He's going to start unwinding the George Soros's groups out there.
Well, they need unwinding him also means prosecuting him, because you not only look, you can protest, can you pay somebody to put a sign up and down? But the problem is when they turn violent. And that's when you get into Antifa and some of these other organizations. I'm glad to see the president designate them as terrorist organizations, but you've got to go take down those networks. And it is a much bigger, broader problem. And I think if the funding was exposed, but then they've also got to prosecute some people.
And
the line is violence. If you want to have somebody paid protesters say, "Oh, I don't like Netanyahu," hey, okay, you can do that. But can you advocate violence? And everything from what was happening on the school campuses to Antifa to look at what's going on in Portland right now. I mean, it's still going on in mass.
And Chairman, I just want to get back to what you've been talking about, and in terms of dollars and cents. We have a situation where the president has got tariffs out there now on pharmaceuticals and heavy machinery that came out yesterday. Have you guys been consulted on this in terms of all the tariffs that just went out? He's trying to bring manufacturing back, and this is kind of his heavy-handed way of doing it.
This is something that the president started an investigation back about 6 months ago under 232 of looking at the pharmaceutical industry for one and bringing those supply chains back to the United States. It is very alarming to know that our country is not secure when it comes to pharmaceuticals and medical supplies.
But nothing's happened. We know that since the pandemic ended, we didn't do anything about it.
And this is what the president's working towards to do it. And that's why he's setting these tariffs on to help drive that manufacturing. Pharmaceuticals should be manufactured in the United States. There's no reason why it can't. It's such a high-tech process in the way that you move that forward. And this is a step of it, but this is part of the president's 232 and not IEPA.
What does that mean?
232 has been litigated in the prior administration, and the courts have found that he has the authority to. What you have being litigated right now at the Supreme Court is under IEPA. He did some of the tariffs.
All right, and finally, 30% approval rating for the Democratic Party, 38% for the Republican Party. We know tradition has it the House flips, Jason Chaffetz. Do you feel as though it's very much in play, and there's the Senate in play in your mind?
I mean, look,
not partisanship, just your analysis.
Yeah, normally it just flips in mass, but I don't see that happening at all because you got people like Zoran Mamdani and AOC and others as the leaders of the Democratic Party. And what issue are they going to run on? Safety, security, the economy, everything Donald Trump's doing, and what Jason Smith and the House have been doing. It's been going in the right direction. America knows that.
We got to get these trans athletes into women's locker rooms. That's their goal. Yes. I think they're going to run on that. Exactly. Chairman Jason, Chaffetz and Smith.
Over time, many world leaders buckled. They buckled under the pressure of a biased media, radical Islamist constituencies, and anti-Semitic mobs. There's a familiar saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Well, for many countries here, when the going got tough, you caved. And here's the shameful result of that collapse. For much of the past 2 years, Israel has had to fight a seven-front war against barbarism, with many of your nations opposing us. Astoundingly, as we fight the terrorists who murdered many of your citizens, you are fighting us.
The Prime Minister Netanyahu, I'm firmly behind and always have been, and I'm just amazed that we have thousands of people in New York. I shouldn't be saying amazed. I'm just going to tell you, there's thousands of people in New York outside the UN chanting for the Palestinians who have walked away from every opportunity to have a two-state solution. They don't want one. And then you had all these Arab nations walk out as the Prime Minister went behind the podium to give a speech. Tomi Lahren's here, co-host of the Big Weekend Show, 5 to 8 Saturday and Sunday. And for a host of Outkick, Tomi Lahren is fearless. Tomi, you watched the whole speech, right?
I did.
You saw the big uproar as the delegations walked out.
Yeah, to be expected.
Right.
Whatever, let them lead. They're cowards in many ways. The Netanyahu speech was fantastic, as they always are. I think he's an excellent speaker.
Yes.
I think he conveys things both eloquently, but he also gets to the point. When he held up that board with the multiple choice, the pop quiz, I thought that was genius. And to the clip that you just played saying, we're fighting all these wars, sometimes on behalf of your own citizens, and you're fighting us.
I know.
And I think that was incredibly powerful.
And you remember when he brings up also, he's like, you talking about a two-state solution, a Palestinian state. You know who doesn't want one? The Palestinians. Have you asked them? They've had 5 separate opportunities to have one, beginning in 1945. They have war in 1948. And ever since then, they had Oslo in 93. You know, Tomi, who sounds as determined as Netanyahu or frustrated? When you talk to Bill Clinton. Because he kind of spent like 3 years of his presidency working at the nuances of a deal, including a tunnel that would connect the West Bank or a bridge to Gaza, and this is what they're going to be, and we're going to have a piece of Jerusalem. And then he gasps for Africa, goes, yeah, not doing it. Sorry. And that's why even Hillary Clinton will bring up, don't include me in this Palestinians have a case theory, because they've walked away from all of it.
Right. Well, I thought it was also powerful when he said they don't want a Palestinian state. They want to eliminate the Jewish state. That is the goal. Yeah. And he also brought up, and I think for these protesters that are outside, I think a lot of them are just morons, some well-meaning, some not, who think that this is their new cause. I mean, they go from one cause to another. It's
You think they're all getting
Antifa,
paid?
BLM. Yeah, to some extent, but I also think that a lot of them are influenced by TikTok. And you see a lot of folks on social media that are very pro-Palestine. They don't really know what it means. They're not necessarily about all human rights. This is the issue that they've chosen because it's the in vogue thing to do. But these protesters out there, when Netanyahu spoke to, if you ask the Palestinians, how many of them celebrated October 7th, that it's overwhelming.
90%.
So reminding people that, yes, we want to protect civilians. Yes, we don't want death and despair and starvation. But keep in mind, a lot of these people, whether they've been indoctrinated from age 1 up or not, they want Jews and Americans dead. Just remember what we have to contend with. All these people that are protesting, they refuse to acknowledge it, or maybe they don't care.
So General Jack Keane said, I went over to Israel. He just got back. He said, Donald Trump is the most popular political figure anywhere in that country, wherever you go, as soon as they know you're an American. And that wasn't the case with Barack Obama. It certainly wasn't the case with Joe Biden. I even think Bush 41 didn't have great relationships with Russia. Reagan had a great one, and Bush 43 had a great one with Israel, always an ally. So having said that, the President of the United States had this to say as he was outside Marine One before he headed to the Ryder Cup.
It's looking like we have a deal on Gaza, and we'll let you know. I think it's a deal that will get the hostages back. It's going to be a deal that will end the war. It's going to be a deal it's going to be peace. I think we have a deal. That'll be number 8, Peter. Not bad.
Side note, you might have a deal on Gaza. It has to be all the hostages.
Right.
I mean, am I right? I mean, there's no deal that could happen without that.
Right. Well, also, I think that, again, I'm surprised there weren't really many follow-ups to that question, by the way, because I thought that was a pretty big one to drop, and then they moved on to other things. I thought that was kind of the big one of the morning there. But I think, again, hostages, but also, if Hamas is still controlling that region, if Hamas is still controlling Gaza, I'm kind of with Israel on this one. Oh, we're going to trust you this time? Oh, this time? I mean, is it, as Netanyahu said, is that a joke?
Right. Of course not. So let's talk about the Comey thing, because I know we have one long segment, then you have Outnumbered, right?
Yes.
And then are you going to be on One Nation? Is that rumor confirmed?
Yes, it is.
Do you know who you're going to be joined by?
I'm pretty sure it's going to be you.
And Sylvester Stallone, Kid Rock, Stephen Miller, Jim Jordan.
All right, so I'm the only lady on the show that night.
I think that's one of your demands.
Well, that's what I wanted, and that's what I got.
You're going to do the media moments that matter, and
yes.
Of course, you're going to be on for 6 hours over the weekend. So James, I'm not exaggerating, from 5 to 8 Eastern time. So James Comey got indicted yesterday, and your thoughts about the chances of this being successful, because the Democrats are beside themselves. Here's Jamie Raskin, cut 9.
Well, it's obviously an outrage. It's a scandal. And it does feel like a major lurch into further lawlessness in the country. But all of this bespeaks an incredible politicization of the Department of Justice and its conversion into an instrument of the political will of the president.
So he's not for it.
Listen, when I hear these Democrats talk about political weaponization as if we all didn't live through, 10 years of that very thing, that's laughable. Please spare me. They should all be very quiet. The American people are not dumb. We have a mugshot of President Trump to prove what you have done, okay? Mm-hmm. But I will also say this. I hope it sticks, because if it doesn't, I think, again, similar to all the investigations that went on into Biden family influence peddling and all that, which I thought were noble endeavors but didn't amount to anything. I think that if you're going to go to this length, it's got to stick. Otherwise, it feels like a dog and pony show, which I don't like.
Tell me what you think of my theory, and it sounds like it's going to be, I'm not for it, Brian, which won't hurt our relationship at all. I believe that by bringing this out, by making him lawyer up, by making him go ahead and try to get a story together, which he clearly lied about, if you get us to that point where the whole country's got to say, why the hell is he on trial again? And when they realize with any good lawyer how many times he's lied on his book tour, like an idiot, he does a book tour answering questions. He got real questions from Brett Baer, and then the Ted Cruz, the Susan Collins, the Lindsey Graham questions. He just looks terrible. So my thing is, by bringing it forward, if the case is tried adequately, if they have a fair jury, and if he has a way to walk, it'll still underline the corruption that took place. You don't feel like that. You don't feel like the bringing the case forward, if presented, is enough.
My thing is, to those who are paying attention, we already know, right? My mind space is always to go to convincing the other side, right? Because everything is hearts and minds when it's political. So if he walks, will the other side pay attention to all the lies? Will they pay attention to all of the finer points of it? I'm not sure. I would hope so, but I'm not entirely sure that that's going to be the case. I hope something sticks. I hope we get some transparency. If we get transparency out of this with him and many others, it will be a victory. So
I want you to hear Senator Lindsey Graham last night, because in the beginning, I remember, he goes, Brian, I don't know what's going on with Russiagate. I never saw Trump with anyone with Russia, but we have to find out what happened. And then we find out that he submits that leaked information to his Columbia professor friend, puts the editorial in the New York Times, and then they launch a special counsel featuring Robert Mueller. Cut 13.
He said he knew there would be a cause standing up to Trump. Everybody who stands up to Trump gets cheered on as a hero. Every accusation against Trump that's bad for him is assumed to be true. The question is there any cost to people trying to destroy President Trump's presidency, his personal life? Is there any cost in this country for lying to a court to push a warrant that you know is really not accurate? So here's the question. Everybody answered my question who signed the warrant application. If you knew then what you know now, would you sign the warrant application? They all said no. Now, why did they say no? Because me and you and a bunch of other people proved it to be just complete BS. It was not a reliable dossier. It was hearsay. It was bar talk. It was made up garbage by people associated with the Clinton campaign.
And he's going to be forced to ask that question.
Right, which I think is good. Let's get some transparency. That's what I hope. I hope that something lands with it. I just hate giving fodder to the other side to distract from everything great that this president is doing, the awful things I believe the Democrat Party and the left are doing. I hate to give them this giant distraction so they can sit there and cry and moan and whine. That just annoys me to my core, I guess, and I'd rather them have to address the real issues in their party. This gives them an out for that, which for me, from a media perspective, just annoys me.
I understand, too. You know, one of the big stories yesterday that no one's talking about, our GDP at 3.6%, right. 3.8%. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's like, that is China big. I mean, that's growth that nobody projected, but it was overwhelmed by the Comey indictment, the Gaza situation, everything else that's going on and swirling around the Ukraine, the UN. So I'm not saying that's bad, but if the economy gets on track, which it could, I remember there with President Bush, when Iraq was going bad, you know what was going great? Our economy. And nobody was talking about it because everyone was like, what the hell is going on in Iraq? So if the economy gets on track, they could bring a close to these two conflicts, Ukraine and Gaza. This might be a heck of an election in the midterms. And I think by the time this gets on track, it might be even to the next, it might be a year before we see this guy on trial.
Right. Well, I hope so. And I hope that there is no distraction. I hope that the left and the leftist media finally has to confront the victories of this administration.
Tomi Lahren, the question is, you're in the prime of your life. You're in excellent shape. Could you get down to the set of Outnumbered in 13 minutes?
Yeah, I think I can manage that.
And will you still stick around for Sunday at 10 o'clock?
Absolutely. I'll be here all weekend, Brian.
You know, I just pinned her. I just committed Tomi Lahren. Tomi, thanks so much. We'll watch you from 5 to 8 in the big weekend show, Saturday and Sunday.